All right, then we start with our first thematic block. As said, knowledge transfer is extremely important in the SAG project, and I very much like to welcome now Carsten Rothweiler, Silvia Salini, and Philipp Hartmann with the topic how to guide new initiatives to grow. Stage is all yours.
Thank you very much indeed. Hello everyone, again from my side, Carsten Rothweiler. I'm here joined with two experts, Silvia Salini, also from ICLEI, and Philipp Hartmann from Baum Consult. Looking into the first pillar of today, thematic pillar today on information and knowledge exchange, and you're all here decided to replicate. Indeed, the question is for which purpose? And if I may say so, for ICLEI's purpose, that is clearly sustainable development, sustainable urban development, economic development on nature-based solutions, as well as on resilience. These are pathways which we for ICLEI combine, and I think could be part of our discussion, which we have in a minute. Before that, we will look into how to replicate and how can the site enable you to replicate community energy projects, collective actions. And first of all, I would like to hand over then to Philipp, sharing the knowledge that you have gained, lessons learned from the innovative concept of a coffee shop, which is virtual as well as physical in the future. Let us know what this is all about.
Thank you very much, Carsten. Hello, everyone. I've introduced myself earlier, but I'm Philipp Hartmann. We want to have a very quick look at what DECIDE's three core values are. And as you can see here already, we have citizen engagement as one of the three parts, enabling framework as the second, and the one that we want to focus on within the next 2 hours, knowledge exchange, where we have the knowledge hub. That's something that Silvia will tell us a little bit more in a minute. Webinars and workshops, which everyone knows, which we'll, I don't know, talk about later maybe as well. And the coffee shop, which I got introduced on already, which I want to try to explain to you within one slide. The slide will look complicated in a minute. I want you to focus on the lower left side. It looks this way because we try to set up a way that we can replicate people or replicate mechanisms and groups, but we also wanted to have as one goal to have it run self-sufficiently. So when the project ceases and we don't get funded anymore, that we have a mechanism in place that can still replicate like after we're gone, so to say. And we decided that Scrum is a mechanism that can do its job here. If you look at the season split, so we have multiple seasons that run throughout the time that DECIDE is still an active project, but we will also want to have seasons ongoing later on. We have each season, okay, I don't point is not working, that get initiated, and we have a phase kickoff where like the whole group, everyone who wants to participate can introduce each other themselves, find a partner, or we called it a tandem, to bounce back and forth ideas, have those ideas, like work on those ideas in their own time, and come back 3 times during the season within those synchro sessions to update each other, see where the challenges go, where problems lie, how they overcome it, good knowledge to help the tandem partner out. Have a retrospective at the end of the season. How far did you go? Did everything work that you tried to implement or that you tried to work on? And do you want to go forward from here on in the same pair, or have you achieved everything in this pair that's possible? And do you want to split up and maybe like tandem or dance with someone else to take your project further? Which then will happen in a phase review stage where everyone again is together in the same room or in the same Zoom or Teams meeting, discuss a little bit what they've done, and then it starts all over again with the kickoff where you either commit to your partner from before or find a new partner. Then I will hand over to you, Sylvia.
Yeah, thank you. While Philip was presenting a coffee shop, that is the way that within design we thought to make the link between the pilots and the designers and the initiatives that have been identified once the project was already ongoing. So about exchange of experiences, and Philip rightly mentioned the sustainability over time of this kind of actions. One way that we really are trying to strengthen in order to build this knowledge in a way that it stays even after the project ends, the Knowledge Hub and the capacity building programs. The Knowledge Hub is a gateway available freely online. You can find the link in our website, in the Decide website, and it's a collection of interesting resources, reports, tools, reference to other projects, sister projects, any kind of things that can help people in getting more information about energy communities so they can really take action. And this is regardless of the level of the background and state of the energy community, if already existing or collective action. And the capacity building program, again, is a way that we are trying to interactively making available to everyone, all kind of stakeholders that investigate all the different aspects of energy communities and collective actions. So this is what we have been doing in the last years or so, but the important piece is, of course, what we learned from this year, in this last 12 months. We've been looking into several seasons of the coffee shop, almost halfway with the capacity building activities. So something that we can share, and happy to discuss it further, is first of all, energy is already a very complex topic. And when we think about energy communities, it's not just complex, it's new for many people. So if you are used to work within this space, you are might be very used to some terminologies and concepts, but most of the people are not. So those are complex elements that need to be break down in small pieces. Then it have to be clear who is your audience, and the message have to be targeted to this specific audience, because of course different people have different understanding and might have different interests in what you are saying, different leverage that can be used. This is going to influence the language. Of course, we've been observing that language is a barrier. Most of our activities are in English. Not everyone is comfortable with English, but this is also related to vocabulary. So again, making use of simple words to make sure that the message goes through, especially avoiding any EU project jargon if possible. Then practical examples that gives a look into how real people do things in the real context. So it's not just about theory, it's not just about good idea and wishes, but it's really about taking action and being able to hopefully replicate at least pieces of these actions. And then sufficient time for discussion. This is always something often kind of overlooked. We cannot turn on the discussion button right away. Oftentimes you need some warm up before. So just take this into account in order to have a good exchange. You have to give time for this to happen.
And then two more additional things that we mainly took away from the coffee shop and the discussion after the first and the second season is that you have to keep it simple but also structured. Like you need the structure for the people to follow along and have certain guidelines, but it also has to be simple enough for someone to understand it quickly and intuitively to use it frequently. And the last point is to have a good system, start with a good system, but then also adapt it to the needs of your people, of your participants, pretty much. And talk to them, get feedback, share feedback, see what worked, what didn't work, and then adapt to go forward.
I think that's all we learned so far. And we are still in the learning curve.
Okay, thank you very much to both of you for explaining giving us a little bit of insight what Decide is able to offer you out there in the virtual space, but also here in the room. So become a decider, meaning look into the lessons learned of the pilots of Decide and accompany them, exchanging with them in a peer-to-peer format. We have actually workshops, we have different types of formats that we are offering here along the way. So accompany us in this journey, welcome invited. And with that, I would like to ask you to take a seat, sit back, and would like to ask our decider, one of our deciders of Decide, to come on stage. To be precise, Martin Fabok. He is co-founder of the community energy service company CESCO. He is developing business models, organizational aspects, is doing research and advocacy in the establishment process of a social enterprise, facilitating community solar projects through access to finance and project management. Before that, he was also senior energy market analyst at NAFTA-Soft, as well as worked as a program leader and energy policy expert for Energia Club, amongst others. So we are very happy to have you here. Please tell us, share us your lessons on Decide from your perspective as decider.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I think I start with a disclaimer. I think it's not my perspective on Decide as a decider. I think I'm learning what Decide is, so I think it's more kind of a generic, how to say that, approach of ours on information and knowledge, and probably from a perspective of an initiative which is still fairly in its kind of initial phase, and looking more on that kind of challenges and not a kind of more advanced challenges. So can we go to the... Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of have two hats. One is community energy service company, of which we are a consortium member of, because this is currently just a project consortium, so it's not yet a social enterprise, but it aims to have at first 7 pilot community solar projects in Hungary, co-funded from the government. And in the future, we would like to develop a long-term business model based on that. And I'm also representing Solidarity Economy Center, which is one of the funders of this consortium. And Solidarity Economy Center is becoming, or in the process of becoming, a cooperative development agency for solidarity economy initiatives. So not just in the area of energy, but also in the area of agriculture, housing, and care work. So that's it. And actually, we have our very first community solar project already installed. So that's the good news. Can you go to the next slide?
You presented.
Oh, yeah. So the first question is what's our approach to facilitate energy communities in Hungary? And we see that we are starting from the notion what do energy communities need to actually emerge or evolve. And the most important thing probably is to have a business model, to have the activities and the kind of governance of what you imagine. But also it's really important to have the legal framework, the finances, specialist knowledge in terms of technology, legal, financial issues, and to have actually a community of people engaged in becoming an energy community. And in that process, we see information is really crucial, and we see the role of energy communities not just democratizing the energy system, but also making knowledge available and publicly accessible. And that's how we see our role of facilitating energy communities to a large extent. And to to the question of what information to share, I think it very much depends on the kind of phase of energy communities, because it's really different to in the phase of if you are talking about prospective energy communities, when it's more the question of raising the interest, or whether they are more mature, and it's more like a project or an organizational idea they are in the phasing, or they have an actual successful project or an organization established, or it's more about just operation and running. And what we see also that collecting information is really crucial, and we try to base our approach in finding local partners in Hungary by responding to their needs, so what they want and what is the information they need. And also trying to avoid reinventing the wheel, because there are plenty of materials available in English. If you look at the RESCOPE website or various Horizon project websites, but there is always the challenge of how to customize it, how to make it relevant to your country, in case our country, Hungary, in terms of the legal context, in terms of the socio-economic context. So that's quite important. And my last slide is how to share the work, on how to share the work. It's basically there should be a different message for different audiences. And for the general public, or to raise the interest in energy communities, I think our approach is to tell the story of democratic energy transition without going into detail into the legal issues and so on, but to actually engage with prospective communities, it's more the question of actually helping them to design a viable model where legal issues, financial issues are very important, and also the kind of sense of what makes it an actual community. And in Hungary, we definitely have the challenge of explaining what energy communities are to policymakers and the energy sector, and for us, the key is to show it as a social innovation, because there is always a misconception that it's some kind of a technical or market initiative and not a social initiative. And I think for us, we very much kind of choosing the channels to use to share the information based on these kind of different audiences and the messages we would like to deliver. So for the general public, we use more media and social media. For prospective energy communities, we try to design more specific information materials and events. And for policymakers, it's more like policy papers and presentations and going to conferences. So that's it.
Thank you very much. We do have some time to discuss some initial questions. There will be more to come in our panel after the coffee break, but maybe there are some questions in the audience as well as online. So I would like to invite you to send us your question via chat, and we can have them in the second row. But there is already a question here from the audience.
Quick question. You mentioned the first project is already in place.
Yes.
And what is it exactly about?
It's a community solar project.
Yes.
In Budapest. So it's a community center like in Budapest, and there are maybe 10 different organizations there. So NGOs, there is independent media outlets, so those kind of organizations, and we actually managed to get 100% funding for that. So that's great. And now what we are doing is to develop a framework on how to spend the revenues. And our aim, or what we are designing currently, is to have a community fund there and to finance energy efficiency projects in the building. So it's a fairly large building.
So it's a bundle of a complex of buildings.
It's one building.
It's one building, okay.
It's a formerly industrial building, so it's quite a large one. So we have a 36 kilowatt peak solar panel there, so it's quite large. And hopefully that's the very first one, and others will follow.
Okay, congratulations. Do we have a question from outer space already? Not yet. So feel encouraged to type in your question via the chat here within the room.
What would you say was the biggest barrier, like up to now, in setting up the project? Was it more, I don't know, engaging with the community, or you mentioned that you managed to get the financing, so I don't think that was, or maybe unclear legal framework that you need to go through?
I think it's more setting up the organization. In the sense of the community, we are part of the community, so we have our office there, and we are previously engaged with that because that's a very, very important hub of many social initiatives in Budapest. But as we are working as a consortium, and it's a different organizations, it's not an easy process to have a common vision. And now actually in the kind of phase of instead of trying to pull everything more like to have our kind of separate faces more as organizations. So we as Solidarity Economy Center, we are, for example, showing our face more and trying to have activities more on our own and not just as part of the consortium.
Please.
Two questions. Number one is, what kind of organization? Are you a company? Are you an association? And the second one is, in this this rainbow of for-profit and non-profit, where do you position yourself?
We as Solidarity Economy Center, we are an association, so we are non-profit. And the Community Energy Service Company, that will be a non-profit limited company. So it will be a non-profit, but definitely working in the best business area. And I think that's what we are learning, that we have more NGO backgrounds, where we got used to getting funding from grants, but now we actually building up a business model which is more market-based. It's still a non-profit one, but it's more market-based.
Is the energy service company, is that more about delivering and owning and operating community energy assets, or is it more about helping communities do their own, so a support service? Or?
I think it's getting more focused on actual project development and project operation. And I think what I mentioned about this kind of different organizational profiles, we see as Solidarity Economy Center as more focusing on the kind of soft side of sharing information, lobbying, building up a network, so those kind of activities. But I think it's a challenge because these go hand in hand in the sense of to facilitate energy communities, you need both kind of hard engagement in terms of project management and financing, but also the kind of softwares in terms of sharing information and lobbying and so on. And it's a challenge for us how to delineate or how to set the kind of organizational contours of who does what.
Do you think they'll be linked, or like governance and ownership and things, or just sort of linked by collaboration? Like you said, the company's not set up yet, right?
Yeah, we as Solidarity Economy Centers, we will be one of the owners of the company, a minority owner, probably 5 or 10%, so more symbolically than in actual kind of operation. So there will be a link, but I think we are still learning. So we are still designing what's the kind of exact division of labor or connection.
Thank you so much for answering again the question so in so many ways why to replicate, making the case. Two aspects: solidarity you mentioned, but also democratizing energy. And at the same time, you were saying that it's difficult sometimes to policymaker to explain that concept, and you try to sell it as social innovation. Why do you think so, policymakers don't get that solidarity and democratizing energy is something very close to the citizens and therefore also close naturally to actually the interest of policymakers to move forward? Why is that the case?
I think that's probably to some extent specific to Hungary. That in Hungary, I think the whole concept of community energy was taken up by policy as a kind of how to engage with residents and how to design business models for that. And to some extent, the transposition of the directives, they have an innovative approach in terms of funding pilot projects and to have the aim for the policy to learn from these pilot projects. But the challenge is that the funding we got for CESCO, there were 6 or 7 other initiatives funded, and they were all driven by energy companies. Mostly in consortium with municipalities, but they definitely have more an approach of making money out of this. And basically they look at energy sharing as a kind of IT issue. That how to design a system of metering and settlement for customers on the low level. So that's, I think, probably, I hope it's specific to Hungary to some extent, because in other countries I see that energy communities are more seen as social initiatives, but in Hungary I think that's very much a challenge.
Okay, thank you for that aspect. We will come and diversify further with other panelists. So far, thank you so much. We will have a short break now and come back at 10:35 sharp with different perspectives again. Thank you so much. Great, then welcome back to our first panel of the day, with the focus on how information and knowledge fostered, is fostering replication and the establishment and growth of energy communities. And we are very happy to have further panelists here with us, Sylvia. Right, so one we already introduced. Let us introduce the others. Next to me, we have a decider. We have Erika Svetik. She is professional expert in the Green Energy Cooperative. Her work involves project management in the area of community building, environmental impact, and coordination. She is responsible for the organization of the strategy of the YES team in the city of Plitvice to achieve system transformation with social and technical innovations towards energy independence and climate neutrality by 2030. That is quite ambitious. We will hear more about that issue, I'm sure. Sylvia, who else do we have here on the panel?
We have Martin Zacharias, energy expert from the Tartu Regional Energy Agency, TREA, which is the regional agency, the only one. TREA is working on municipal energy planning, energy efficiency, reconstruction of residential building, and is currently really engaged with energy communities at the national level, not only at the local level, and is one of the front runners dealing with multiple projects, youth from the project, including this site as one of our pilots, and trying to implement the first community energy in Estonia while putting PV panels on top of kindergarten and actively contributing to development of community energy policies.
Great. And then we have also here with us Athanasios Papakonstantinou from Heron, from the site. He is energy market and policy expert in Heron, and Heron is the largest independent electricity retailer. He's also engaged in developing natural gas supply in Greece. Is continuously improving and introducing new climate-friendly energy services to its customers. For instance, as part of the site, you will tell us more about it, but about 200 electricity consumers are part of the initiative here, being supplied with smart meters, but also we have some prosumers of those supplied with local renewable energy as part of that wonderful pilot project that you are running as part of the site. So thank you all for being here. Sylvia, what is the first kick-off question that we should ask our panelists here?
Well, we heard from the speaker before how many elements have to be considered in setting up an energy community. So it was mentioned business model, legal framework, financing opportunities, spatial knowledge, so a lot of information. And my question to all the panelists will be, if you can just give in a not 2 minutes statement, what would it be? What is the biggest knowledge gap that you observe within your context, within your field of work, and also not only what the knowledge gap is about, but what is it related to? Is it just content-wise, information missing, or is it the channel that is not working? Is it the way the message is drafted that is not suitable? So I might ask, for example, to Athanasios maybe to start.
Yeah, I mean, Greece, the whole idea of energy communities, although it's, let's say, very well documented and described as part of regulatory frameworks and laws, it's not a transparent process. It cannot be, the various steps of development and deployment cannot be monitored. So we have a law decree, which has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. But then, so in principle, politicians and are saying like, well, we have it, and why are we not implementing it? So what else do you want from us? So, but then when you start dealing with it on a practical view, you start hitting knowledge gaps. Like how can, for example, start an energy community, convince people to join, offer a business model if it's not, if I'm not sure whether I can build it in the grid, if there is no space, if there is no transparent information process for the DSO to show me where I can build the PV asset. How can I engage the public and tell them like, okay, we have this plan, join us.
So transparency is an issue. Yeah. Information seems to be there, but not really.
Exactly.
Okay, so we will pick this up further on. Maybe Martin.
I mean, we have had quite many projects in recent years regarding energy communities, and in general, I think we have all the knowledge, but actually, finally, we want to implement something, we need more details, but they are also hard to get from somewhere because they are not like matching for our legislation perspective, for example. So far, I think our biggest issue that we are dealing is this public procurement procedure regarding basically selling electricity for municipal buildings.
Erika, may I ask you from your perspective, in Croatia, is the big picture missing or the details?
I would say both.
Everything's missing.
Everything. Well, depending on who is their target group. So if you're dealing with citizens, they need basic definitions. They need baby steps to learn how to actually participate in energy market. What is the future? How can they be involved? What is the definition? Like what kind of action do they need to take? What is the collective action? And at the end, what is the energy community? After the transposing the directive in Croatia, the energy communities are limited to be set up as a non-profit association. So not just any organization, but association specifically, and those participating on the low voltage substation. So actually, only your neighbors can participate, and at the same time, we are referring this as a public, apartment building, because this is something that can be mostly interpreted as energy communities within the citizens, but actually it's a collective self-consumption. So we need to educate them about what we are talking about and how they actually can participate with solar or without solar. For the other stakeholders, for example, municipalities or DSO or retailer, so on, they have the same issue. So different definitions, different perspectives. And from the technical side, it's not complicated, but what they want to know is just to let the community decide what is the business model, and the community has to present to them what is the business model and how the decisions are going to be made and handled, and then they will decide if they are letting in to be part of the energy community. So I would say the knowledge gap in definitions, in general interpretation of what does it mean to be part of it, and awareness that you can actually be part of the energy community and get some benefits from it.
Let me ask a follow-up question before we come then also further here to the panel of what would you think is or can you describe a typical participant, a typical prosumer that you are encountering, how to characterize those people that would like to presume in Croatia?
Okay, so we have two different prosumers. Those who are very into the new technologies and they want to know everything, so very active. Those are the ones who are reading policy, are very active in their development, commenting everything. For example, we open up a Facebook group, Solar Club, and they are very active there, engaging online community. And those are other consumers that are just, their incentive is to gain some financial benefits or ecological benefits. So they're more passive, but like to participate. So if you tell them, you do this or that, they will say, okay, we will do this or that.
It would be interesting how to activate also the others, but we will come to that in a second.
Just maybe asking also, Martin, if you want to complement what you already presented, how the situation is a little bit in Hungary. From your perspective, actually, among the many that you listed, what is the most missing pieces?
I think our challenge is that there is no one single piece of information to point out what's missing, because information is not like, it's the whole puzzle to some extent with all the information. And also, I think what I would like to highlight is, I think information is not just up in the air in the sense of, okay, we need an information and there is some information somewhere in the internet, but it's also like how you get the information, whether there is a trusted partner to get the information from. And I think that's very much important for energy communities, not just to have information in the abstract sense, but to have a trusted partner with whom they can trust in their expertise, and I think that's very crucial.
Does it mean a trusted partner must be a local partner, or can be also of different nature?
Yeah, definitely. And it can be the state in the sense of I would be really glad to have like state official like advisors for energy communities in terms of, I think in Scotland there is this CARES program where you basically can turn to an agency, a state-sponsored agency that can help you, and I think that would be excellent to have, not just in Hungary, but I think in all countries.
Maybe to follow up, Martin, given the position that TREA is having within your country, kind of intermediary between local and local government, citizens, but also having a dialogue with the national level, what do you think? Where do you think it lies the, let's say, responsibility to share information, to make information available to everyone?
First of all, I correct like the last sentence what they said that it was regarding our pilot, but in general in Estonia it's not so clear and nothing is not very clear there. But it's very hard to say because I feel that the ministry was responsible taking up this directive. I think they should actually share, but at the moment, like we are wanting to share this information and introduce the benefits of what citizen would achieve. So it's like I don't know what are the other opinions, but in my case it's not very clear. We are doing it, but maybe ministry, because they're responsible of taking this directive, should start the process.
Well, you asked a question already to the other panelists, so would somebody of you react to this?
Yes,
support?
I think it was very important what you mentioned about trust, because during the past few weeks I was trying to access some information about some of the technical aspects of the communities, about financial net metering and net metering, which has been a huge discussion in Greece about the benefits of net metering and every variation / flavor of net metering. And I was not in the mood of checking the legal documents and doing all this hard work. So I said like, okay, there must be something that has like a bullet 1, 2, 3. And then all the information I could find was about it was in developers, in PV developer sites. And that for me was like zero trust, because everybody was presenting the process in slightly different ways, too simple, so you can get a quote from them. And or master's thesis, which were like 10 years ago. So the accessing all this information into a very concrete way and easy to follow, I think is very crucial from a trusted party. And it's not, we're not there yet.
Not there yet. I can refer also to the German case. Is indeedly it's very nitty gritty and with stacks of paper that a prosumer, an individual should analyze, and likely they share the same mood with you, not looking at legal documents. But Erika, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I wanted to agree with you that the transparency is actually a huge gap. But luckily for Croatia, we partner up with the Faculty of Electrical Engineering, who are very active in masters that are focusing on energy communities, microgrids, energy sharing. So there's a lot of information there. And they have a good partnership with the DSO and so on. So they are working together and you can gather this knowledge. But for the general public, there is no mentioning of energy communities or any kind of participation on the energy market as a citizens. So the only news you can read is from us or our partners. So we are still missing this movement in Croatia, but maybe it's part because the electricity market is still monopolized in Croatia. So there's a lot of struggle towards this.
Okay, since we have discussed a little bit here the knowledge which is quite different in terms of system accessibility trust in different countries here presented. Let's look into, with also that in mind and this as background, look into our question, how to replicate the decentralized energy structure as quick as possible. There is with the Repower EU billions coming for the centralized structure, but I think even equally important is that we are as fast as possible also with a decentralized energy structure involving as many people as possible here. So in that sense, let me ask the question, how do you see possible to transfer knowledge into different contexts? We have here two pilots, we have here two deciders. You have exchanged already. Maybe Martin, what was your best advice or best channel which you have discovered how to tell Erika or Martin how you have done your job in Estonia? How can they replicate from you best? What would you think?
Just simple, I think, communication or talking and comparing our, because we are actually also we are not finished our thing. So just having good communication and asking each other questions that we are interested. It's so easy that way. But for example, country-based replication, we feel that we need something real to be done before, like the first pilot, for example, and then the trust comes from there. If we can show it really, like, yeah, it's in Estonia, we have it, and then we can like share more easily this information about energy communities and how we can help, for example, municipal buildings to get more renewables.
And maybe since we have another, let's say, pilot here that is part of the site since the very beginning, all the pilots, most of the pilots are coming from different countries. I would like to turn most of the question to you, Thanasis. How do you see replication working across different countries? We know that the bottom line of this event, was also Andreas was mentioning, there is no one size fits all. So of course, this is presenting some challenges when you speak about transferring knowledge from one country to the other. But is this possible? What is your experience in this regard? What did you learn from others, deciders within the project?
Well, yesterday I think we had a very interesting discussion also with a fellow utility company, and then we reached to completely different points, and so we're trying to address the same issue, but then we have completely opposite approaches. And that is an interesting process to learn and trying to, foster an opinion. I mean, since our initial involvement in the site, we were a little bit skeptical about replication, how we can assist the project and let's say, inspire a generation of we used to call them then replicants or deciders now. Given that as a utility company, our capacity to mentor is very limited, given given our situation. But following all the discussion today and yesterday, I mean, it becomes clear that what we can do towards replication is that we identify a common set of problems and barriers and solutions. So we are not trying, let's say, to replicate the exact solution that Greece Heron pilot is doing in the site. This is impossible. But our thought process and our, how we reach to this kind of product, this is something that can be replicated and perhaps lead to a different product or to a different application in a foreign country. But how we reach our, let's say, journey is something that we can replicate without focusing on the final destination.
Well, so about process and approaches rather than maybe concrete products or concrete elements in particular. So the trade, like the steps that you take, and then the results might be different, probably more fitting to different contexts where this takes place.
this is an interesting approach, and I would like to ask maybe Erika, since you are also from Croatia, very much involved in a different projects. Do you see this mirroring? What is your experience?
Okay, yeah, you recognize the good stepper process. So, for example, we started with the crowd investment campaign where citizens invested into PV put on the public building. So first step was there to get them know how they can invest, they can be part of it and get some money out of it. And then after we organized this community, we set up the local association, which is currently acting as an energy office in the city. We did the second campaign in the city to a library, which is located next to the technical plot, the first one. And now we are investigating with the city and the citizens how to create energy community in a technical sense, so that the public library can share the energy with the kindergarten, which is connected to the load substation. On the other hand, so this is all in the city of Križevci. On the other hand, we have a great relationship with the city of Varaždin and other regions where we are setting up the smart meters to measure the energy efficiency and their behavior with prosumers. And this is something that we are now, let's say we are in the development of managing the community, as we are now having more than 100 participants willing to be in there, and for around 45 that are actively sharing the data with us. So now we have this community and we need to focus our efforts on how to engage them. So I like the coffee shop, the coffee shop concept, because this is the way how we can actually use these resources and do something with it. On the other hand, another project we have, like Dream, is focusing on demand response, so flexibility, and this is like level 7 from start, how to participate to how to share your energy for demand responding. And this is something I would like to discuss with all of you, like how did you deal with the citizens and how do you persuade them to actually participate in such a way, especially because the DSO is still not into this place at the moment.
That's a perfect bridge, Erika. Thank you very much. Also, you should be part of the discussion. If you want to have a question or a comment, please feel free to raise your hand and come in here. Let me ask, Morten, you have Martin next to you, and he was saying that actually sharing information, asking questions, that's so easy. We in the coffee shop not only offer caffeine, but actually also arguments. But the question is, we, I think, could do better if some topic unite us. And here there are different options. We have energy security currently very, very high again on the agenda. We have climate neutrality here to strive for by 2030. There are options for energy resilience to build on a local level. So there are different possible arguments that maybe also facilitate the knowledge exchange, so we understand each other much better and can replicate with a more concrete purpose. How do you see that? To what extent is actually the context important? The political flag, one of those which I just mentioned, or another one in Hungary, to replicate towards others?
I think it's important to have like a topic to discuss, but the potential topics you mentioned, they are a bit too abstract for me, in the sense of talking about energy independence, that's less connected to the kind of daily work we are doing. And I think what's our daily challenge more for us is our business model, our governance structure, financing, like crowdfinancing, as you mentioned, for example, and these kind of issues. Also with how to tackle the transposition of the directives and those kind of issues. So I think those are the kind of topics for us which have the right level of generalization, in the sense of I can connect it to our work, but on the other hand, we can have a meaningful conversation on that. So it's not like too much focused on the very specifics. So that's what I have in mind at first.
Do others have other things in mind?
Yes.
I think
Sorry for monopolizing. We actually set up a lot of webinars with different topics. Like we have 8 different topics setting up every second Wednesday online. And we noticed that people are most interested in administrative process of the solar, and then the least interested in energy communities. But on the other hand, as we are engaging with people in Solar Club, they are actually interested in how to participate in market and really engaged on collective action toward the transposition of the directive in a right way. So actually today I received that the public voting will be until the 5th of June. And we are now preparing, together with participants in Solar Club, something that will be introduced to make this transposition more easily and more citizens oriented.
So public voting on the law.
Yeah.
On the energy
on the sub-act of the new law. Yeah.
I think we had a question that Lucia was raising her hand.
Yeah, yesterday we had a bit of a discussion on what is the goal of energy communities or community initiatives and what are we trying to reach with them. On one hand, we see that these energy directives that are defining energy communities, and that's why typically it's people that are in the energy sector, like you say, electrical engineering, university, we have people that typically deal with energy, that maybe have solar, know about solar suppliers and so forth, discussing energy communities. When we talk about energy efficiency, for example, we rarely go to the citizen and we say, there's the directive on energy efficiency, you need to turn off your lights, or you need to change your appliance for a better appliance or something. We talk to them about the energy that they use and how they could save, how they could help themselves or the community or whatever by using, or environment by using better devices and things like this. I feel like with energy efficiency, we don't talk, with the energy communities, we talk less about the social aspect of it, which is, as Martin mentioned, something that maybe energy communities initially can help the most, because we don't yet have DSOs on board. We still need to figure out certain technical aspects. We don't have flexibility markets. There are certain things that energy communities can offer technically that are not currently monetized. So right now, if we want to go towards a bit more social view of energy communities, such as getting more people into the topic of energy, have you had any experiences, let's say, good or bad, or that you saw that maybe it's better engaging people that are usually, let's say, either in social sciences or understanding how consumer thinks, what they want, and these sort of things, to explain to them what energy communities and what is the purpose, why do we have it, why do we want it in the first place?
Yes, so we are connecting the whole big picture of energy communities towards the energy independence and like climate neutrality by 2030. This is the agenda we set up within this project, Future Cities, Southeastern Europe and Križici. Team was working with me there, and this is something we tried in the city of Križici, and it worked more in a political way than actually that people are feeling, that are part of it. People want something very detailed, very on hand, something that is bothering them. And in most cases, this is connected to administration or electricity price. Energy behavior, yes, they're well aware of it, but for example, for the prosumers, they need to experience at least for half a year or a year of having the PV on their roofs to actually understand what they are into. Because we have different calculation of electricity price, and so it's about net metering, but it's different for every user. Nothing is like standardized, and the utility company is like playing with citizens in this matter. So they want to, everything to be transparent and uniform, able to actually participate willingly to be more energy efficient or to be more involved into the energy market. There was a hand.
Yeah, there was a hand at the back, but maybe, before we comment here, maybe looking at Heron here, are you playing with your customers?
Well, during all this period before even the Ukrainian war, we were checking the news around Europe when, like, for example, I remember EDF proposed to their customers to wear, and they actually sent them by mail wool socks as a way of dealing with high electricity prices. Like you turn down the thermostat 2 degrees, and here is a pair of socks. And of course, that was not received well by the customers. So luckily, they did the mistakes for us, so we don't have to do them. But it is actually. I mean, we also have developing let's say a virtual financial net metering product, which even putting all these words together make it complicated. So basically what we do is through this ENA program, which we've also been discussing in this side, is like for a fixed amount, you can get a portion of one of our PV assets, and then you can, without any energy community or without any need to install the PV asset on your roof, it's targeted towards people who live in a block of flats where it's nearly impossible to have a PV asset installed in the roof of a block of flats. And the idea is that with a fixed amount that you get some euros reduction part of your bill. So, and the initial calculation is that sum you would get it in like 8.5 years. But after the prices have gone up, so you can actually, the sum that you are investing, you get it back in 3.5 years. But there was a very critical point at some point, because people would call and complain about electricity price, and the reply couldn't be, well, electricity price is expensive. Why don't you spend 1,000 euros into this fantastic product, which, by the way, you will get it back in 8.5 years. So it has been, from the utility perspective, it has been very challenging to, let's say, promote products that are like energy community light, while also addressing the issue, which is the prices.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. We have now 3 perspectives from the audience. We would start maybe with the gentleman in the back.
Yes, so I would like to come back to something that has been said at the very beginning of the panel about the knowledge gap, how to close the knowledge gap. And I'm thinking about who are the people we can reach with knowledge? Because I think it's only a tiny fraction of the population. You all know the proverb, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach him how to fish and he will have a meal for the rest of his life. And I think this is our approach in many of the projects. But I've come to the realization in my work that most people do not want to learn how to fish. They just want the fish on the plate every day. And so I think what we also have to focus is knowledge, but be aware of who is receptive of the knowledge, who wants to take it. And in addition, we need to develop tools for everybody to use that are simple, that are low effort, that do not require to learn a new skill, that do not require to invest time, because this is what, in my experience, most people don't want. They don't want to invest time to learn how to be more energy efficient. But if we should, that's just my impression, develop tools to make energy communities, develop the tools that allow to run investment models for EV, where you just need to click somewhere on the computer with a mouse and say, I participate, and everything else is done in the background. So, yeah, that's what I would like to say, because it's close to me. We need to develop tools, because with knowledge, I think we don't reach enough people.
Okay, point taken. Let's collect some questions. Ludwig.
Yeah, I think we can go a bit in the same direction. We have at least Martin, who is working for a municipality. That's correct, I think. I would ask, like, what is the role of the municipalities? I mean, we talk community, and we are not only talking to give a tool to the single user. We talk about community approaches. So the oldest and best community, and it was invented in good old essence, is the democracy of municipality. So what is the role of municipalities in that? We are doing consultancy to many municipalities that go for energy plans, or now they go for climate neutrality plans or roadmaps and whatsoever. So wouldn't be the municipalities the ones that should foster, promote and support the development of such communities? Why don't we take them more into consideration when we talk about community building?
Okay, Ludwig, you have looked into Sylvia and my notes here. We will come to that in a second. Very good. In the back.
Yesterday we had a discussion about how the electricity consumers decide to acquire the ENA product. If progress over the last year due to the market developments and the increase in the energy prices. Can you give us a number of this number?
I mean, when we did the big business development of the project, of like this energy autonomous project, when we did some calculations, and then there was like let's say your investment or your initial sum, because due to regulatory issue we're not allowed actually to call it investment. So let's say your initial as the sum that you put in the project, it would have a return of 8.5%, and then you would get it back like eventually, I don't know, in 12 years or something like that. And then we did, like 2 years ago, we probably did some calculations. I was not part of the company, but I assume that they did like 70, 80 euros of market price, so the market price. Now, fast forward into 2 years, where the price increase was like around 2,000, sorry, not 2,000 yet, but 220. So more than 3 times more. So now what happens is that you get this sum that you have put into the project, like in 3.5 years. And again, but again, it's when a customer calls and they are like frustrated and they're trying to figure out why they have to pay like 500-600 euros while they used to pay 200 euros like the previous year. it is very difficult to move from this anger towards spending some more money, even if there is a return that looks, even if it's very intuitive, because the reason that you are paying 3 times more on your electricity bills today is what's going to give you, what makes you like almost an investment that you will get a return in 3 years instead of 8. But this whole argument is very complex to communicate to the customers.
Can you give us a number about the increase of customers over the last months?
I don't have the numbers about the increase of the customers because this is not our. I mean, as an R&D, let's say, function within the company, we're not dealing with these things daily. But it has been very successful, and we actually started. Initially, we have anchored a 50 kV plant, and now we are increasing the capacity for the plant because. There has been a big interest due to the prices and also some advertising campaign that has been happening over the past few months. So we want to expand the asset that is being linked to this product, PV asset.
And maybe before reverting to the question about municipality, what should be the role, just a preview that, of course, the colleagues from the University of Mannheim and Seaburg that have been investigating engagement will be probably respond to some of the aspects that have been raised, especially regarding the fact that, okay, we do produce knowledge, we do want to share information, but are people actually ready and willing to take this information up? Which is a fair question. So some overlaps with the engagement and raising awareness, I see it in there. But then probably returning to Martin, the question about how and what would be the role of local governments in this context.
First of all, every meeting if we have with ministry and municipalities, we are basically always asking it. So it's not like clear, but of course, I have my own opinions. So we are quite in good cooperation with City of Tartu. We were established by City of Tartu, but we are a separate organization. With Tartu, it's easy, but we are doing many of energy and climate plans at the moment for different municipalities or regions. And we are counting the whole territory energy consumption, not in municipal sector, but for whole territory. And in Estonia, as the electricity emission factors are very, very high, then the electricity is the main issue actually that need to be solved. So, and this is one of the options that more energy communities are helped to be established. I mean, city role there is to be at least, it gives, at least in Estonia, it gives more trust if municipality is also part of any kind of this kind of innovation that we are offering. And there is easy with Tartu, but with other municipalities, they don't basically understand or don't want to so much think about they will have the document, but actually how to implement it is another question for the future.
Okay. Yeah. Can I add something? Okay. We're working with cities a lot, and what we have accomplished so far is to engage cities to actually provide substitutes for project developments for citizens. So they are easier to actually invest into PV solar, and after that, within the policy making and strategies, they are setting up the infrastructure they need to actually get there. So maybe that's an option to think about how cities can support citizens or maybe business sector to go towards this road.
Maybe one question to Martin, especially within Hungary. We know that Budapest is a city that is extremely active. We work a lot with Budapest, and sometimes they actually express their frustration in having a national framework that is not really supportive to them. What is your experience with working with the municipality?
We are not working very closely with the municipality. And I think in Hungary it's very specific because the government is deliberately trying to squeeze all money out of municipalities. Because there is a strong centralization, and I think municipalities are really having the challenge of they're trying to maintain the level of public services without the money. And they do not really have much money for actual developments. But I think this situation is quite specific to Hungary. What I see as probably the most how to say that, progressive development in Hungary in terms of municipalities, but Budapest was one of the first municipalities to open an energy office to help citizens, mostly focusing on energy efficiency, so not on energy communities, but I think that's really progressive, but it's still in the very beginning. The other is that Budapest is actually trying to build up a strategy to promote solar, not primarily through financing, but more like addressing the regulatory barriers and to engage with the stakeholders. But that's still quite in the beginning.
Trying to set the structure, as was also suggested, create the basis for then citizens to be active, but maybe also local businesses and organizations. So here maybe your space for contributing.
But interesting, because if the cities, you described the situation here in the Hungarian context, I think it's not, it applies to many cities across Europe, which have tight budgets. And actually here, the solution could be indeed to organize a structure to let others invest and achieve, therefore, climate neutrality. That is a city goal, but the city itself cannot reach it by itself, which they need to engage others and need to organize that. Coming back to the question of fish and fishing. So translating that to the city context, do you see cities realizing this option of achieving climate neutrality, for instance, by engaging, by providing the platform for citizens' engagement, for them to invest rather than the city to invest into energy efficiency and renewables? Are cities keen to learn how to fish, or is that also something due to capacity reasons or lack of interest, not something that you encounter so often?
For me,
you can start.
City and the motivation. I mean, we are maybe so lucky that we are working with Tartu, but at least they understand and they are ambitious in climate, and they see that participation from citizens is needed to achieve these goals in transportation, in residential building sector, regarding electricity and heating as well. There are maybe some softer, but still actions planned for the industry or service sectors. Voluntary agreements that we are producing something. But no, it depends how important are these goals for cities. But in Estonia, it is like not mandatory to have any kind of reduction goal for municipality. It's just they can set as they want.
Okay, thank you. You are working in the city and you are coordinating the YES team, as I was referring to, towards climate neutrality. So is your city eager to learn how to set up cooperatives, how to facilitate the establishment and fostering cooperatives?
Well, for the city of Kiriș and the Yes team, it really was because, for example, the city of Kiriș is small and they were lacking an energy officer. So it was beneficial for them to actually establish some kind of energy office who can handle and manage the projects of, for this example, solar. What they want to do with the citizens to actually support them to install photovoltaics on their roofs and provide some, well, they support the citizens with some amount of money to develop the projects. This was replicated in other cities as well. We have now counted, I think, 3 or 4 and rising, because the cities are well aware that they cannot achieve this alone and they need to give something. And all of them have budgets for these activities that are very vague. It's all about information and communication about the energy efficiency and so on. But they can wrap up this as a service with someone, so you can educate and inform citizens, but as well the city can support them with some amount to develop their projects.
That sounds quite promising.
Yeah,
Maybe
it can be at least like 3,000 euro. It doesn't have to be a lot, but the citizens then gain trust in the cities as well and their leaders. And if they include them in public buildings, you know, they feel included and they know that they are helping the city and they are gaining something out of it. It's not just, you know, the city is doing this and I'm not involved.
I think there is a question in the audience as a reaction.
That's not necessarily just for you, but for everybody. What is the way that you see that the cities or towns between themselves? For example, there is a good example in one city, like Tartu or that the other cities, do they replicate or are they interested to replicate by communicating with the city, or by who would they go to for, let's say, information, city to city, from your experience?
Can I? Okay, I can start and then everybody can add. Okay, from our experience, the cities communicate between each other, but we communicate with them as well. So we are more like a facilitators for sharing this experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar for us, and like we are using Tartu quite a lot to, I don't know, show others and motivate maybe others to do something.
Let's compete around.
We are actually designing a kind of municipal support scheme that, okay, what do municipalities need? And I think what we didn't talk about municipalities, that there are huge differences between municipalities. So it's very different to engage with a small village, for example, with the aim of having an energy community in the village, compared to a large urban area. And in the large urban areas, what we see as particularly the challenge is multi-apartment houses, because that's where a lot of energy is consumed, and I think many of the solutions now are more applicable to detached houses in terms of solar panel installation, but also many energy efficiency measures, and that's what we see as a key area of intervention.
I mean, this whole discussion about municipalities does not really reflect on us. But some of the, as I said before, about these findings in terms of the process, how can you compare the process? So what we've learned, I think, it's a little bit of the opposite approach. we try to standardize the processes as much as possible. For example, despite the virtual photovoltaic service that we have and we are very proud of, we also do the conventional PV installation on roofs as a product. So we are trying to have a process there that is step 1, 2, 3, 4. It is absolutely transparent. People can go online, initiate the process, but it has not been very successful so far. So actually, for us, it's almost a pain to maintain it as a service. People are not interested in Greece to do this, to install PVs on the roofs. So I don't know. I mean, from the let's say how we could take this, and the most important reason is financing. So now, how do we make this service replicable, or in terms of it reaches the largest parts of the community, is something that we are struggling with.
Sorry, you said that the most important element is financing?
Yes, that's what people have.
Is the motivator or preventing?
It is preventing, because, I mean, once everybody's, let's say not everybody, but many people are willing to invite a surveyor on the roof to tell them, like, okay, you can build this and you can do this and this and this, but then when you go, it's like, okay, so how much it's going to cost me, and then, we lose almost, I don't know, 70% of the quotes, right? It's, we'll see how these things go, because in the power review, all this, it looks like the Commission is obsessed with installing a PV in almost every roof in Europe. Let's see how they provide the financing tools for this to happen, because so far our experience was that people are under the current tariffs. I mean, 10 years ago it was bonanza, like everybody was doing it, but under the current tariffs, people are not that keen to do this.
I think Erika, you wanted to come in here and then.
Yeah, you mentioned that you are not so much connected with municipalities in this matter.
Yeah.
But then municipalities can help you engage with citizens to actually increase the amount of service you get. For example, for us, when the city co-finance the project development, citizens are eager to participate, even though it's just the project. It's not the whole amount of solar. It's just small amount, but they get the feeling, okay, I'm getting something. Like, I'm happy with it. I will do it. So,
I mean, what we figure out, and we're towards those directions, that we're selecting an indirect way of doing this. So, for example, we're trying to partnership with municipalities as part of European projects. Directly by actually calling the proposal together, or indirectly by participating in these events. So trying to, let's say, break the ice. In a business perspective, it's not something that we engage routinely. And there's no, and in general, Greek utilities are not, private at least utilities are not doing this for historical reasons. Like, there used to be one big utility which had like 100% of the market. They make them get 65% of the market, but it's still the dominant player. So there is no and everybody has a poor perception of utilities based on their interaction with a huge public entity, which was unreliable and inefficient. So we have many, let's say, barriers to break. But all this involvement with the European project, if there are dissemination activities or proposals, I think they are helping at least our company to deal with those municipalities that are willing to also break the barrier and doesn't view a utility as an archaic or almost an organization, completely inflexible.
Okay, I think that answers your question. You are nodding. That confirms we have here an intervention, then a second one, and then a question. We are moving slowly towards the end of this pillar, but please be precise and go ahead.
Just on the question of how cooperation with municipalities may spoil a little bit the challenge we actually have if we are talking about citizen energy. It should be something like a really disruptive change in energy. I mean, in the clean energy package, they say, and even the directives, the vision is to make citizens the real center of energy economy and put citizens in the ownership, in the driver's seat of the transposition, of the transformation of the energy system. So probably these, since municipalities tend to be linked to the incumbents of energy, and the incumbents tend to make energy communities a little bit in the direction of a customer retention program, instead of really making them independent and disruptive new actors. Do you see there, and I mean it's directs to all four, do you see any point in, hey, we need more of citizen independence and disruptiveness to really get to the target of energy independence, climate protection, renewable revolution, something like this? I'm tend to be a little bit frustrated with this harmony of municipalities and incumbents and big utilities and the energy provider and citizens.
Okay, let's collect. We have a second intervention here.
Yeah, I guess it's starting from the presumption that we do need a lot more community energy initiatives. By definition, scale, replication, whatever you want to call it, more of them can only happen if there are people willing to lead and create them. Some successful ones have people behind them that are creative, entrepreneurial, socially entrepreneurial, and they're able to, for their community, drive these things forward over a number of years. And without that, community energy doesn't happen. And so the panel is framed around information and knowledge, but maybe reflecting on, and this is a big cultural shift, it's social entrepreneurship skills, etc. So none of you are from sort of, I'm in the UK, Netherlands, Germany, we've seen lots of community energy happening. What are you seeing as critical actually to building up that leadership capacity in communities? And again, to the point back here, you don't need everybody to do that, you need someone to do that. So yeah, what is working as you see it to spark that leadership that's essential to these things happening?
Thank you. That is also a bridge to the next session to come, but we will take that question as a teaser, Mona, if you allow. Asking here the questions from the virtual participants. Does any of the panelists have an energy community project where also with regards to invoices from the energy supplier, the sharing of energy resulted in real cost reduction for participants and not in a virtual test way? Maybe that's the question to Athanasios.
I was trying to just avoid, I didn't know where to put my eyes actually to avoid your looks. Well, we do not have an energy community project with a strict directive definition that we were discussing yesterday. And that is the, and then this again, all this discussion yesterday about whether there's going to be a strong supplier to the energy community members or everyone is allowed to take them to choose. So we don't want to go there today also. But in terms of, let's say, the virtual product that have been developed, we had a discussion before, billing even in a completely closed ecosystem that we are developing, the billing has been challenging. I mean, all this, we had this discussion with a more senior colleague like a month ago, and his view was that the utilities only product is bills. We're not selling energy, we're not selling natural gas, we're not selling electricity, we are selling bills. We only have to do one thing, give bills, and we have to do it correctly. And you will be surprised, despite this, a very realistic assumption, how difficult it is to do it right in a product that we are developing ourselves. So if now we have an energy community with one or many suppliers, I think it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge.
Okay, Morten, you have inspired us on solidarity. Here's a question in regards to that, of how do you prove the energy shared within the community is shared in a fair way? Can you relate to this question?
I don't think we are at that point. But let me reflect on the other questions.
Yeah.
Solidarity is a really great word you use. That we started to talk now about technical issues. And I think the challenge is how to connect those issues with a vision. And I think our vision is to change the economy, because we do think that our current economy is responsible for the climate crisis, but also other democratic and social problems as well. And I think that's our kind of starting point. And obviously we are pragmatic, so we try to find the right means to address those ones, but at the same time I feel that it's really important to have a vision. And that's where municipalities are linked in, because I think municipalities can be a partner, but it's not just a question of, okay, now municipalities are representing people, but we actually would like to empower people in the real sense to be part of the energy transition. And I think it also relates to the question of how to make energy communities successful. And that what I see, for example, in Germany, there was an uptake of energy communities a decade or two ago, but now the utility companies actually push back. And there are more and more large, especially wind projects. And I think probably one of the problems was that there are many energy community initiatives, but it's not a real movement. And I think it's really important to actually build up a movement out of these different projects and local initiatives.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's not just about setting this up and making them working, but really kind of connecting and having those heading toward the same direction, really having this vision element that is key to make sure that actually the final targets of changing and decarbonizing the energy system is.
At the same time, being pragmatic enough to build up viable projects, but on the other hand, being visionary enough to build up a network out of these and to connect and think about partnerships.
I think that's a very nice way to capture the essence. We are heading towards the end. And you mentioned partnership, which is also something that I was noted down as one very important and interesting element to explore further. When, for example, it was mentioned that academia can kind of support in developing and structuring the information that are needed to really empower people and making sure that this vision have the right tools to become true in a way. What else did you note down?
Yeah, maybe quickly, we have two, if I'm not mistaken, two still open questions. A quick answer, Martin. Here, Ulf asked for the disruptive citizens. Do we need more of this type?
Disruptive, not destructive.
The waves okay, so here more concretized the question. What is your perspective here from a regional energy agency?
I think I need more explanation for that question.
Could you repeat your question accurately? So,
I mean, Martin already put it quite in the direction. Municipalities tend to be linked to incumbents, to old structures, and tend to replicate them. How can citizens really team up with municipalities to make the disruptive change in energy business we need?
It's going like other way that we feel, at least in Tartu, because we have also this climate neutrality mission for 2030, that the city is trying to make this change and I don't know, involve the citizens to do something differently that actually solves the situation. And they're looking for also different projects and initiatives to support them, maybe as well in financially.
I think Martin raised an interesting point, saying like there are many initiatives, but there is no movement. And based on my historical knowledge, there has been only very limited cases in history where you can unite, let's say, a band of entities based only on economic benefits. We have been focusing a little bit too much, also us, from the utility, but also again from the municipalities. We are taking this, we have this perception of the only thing that people want to do is, reduce their bills. So we cannot, so there are many initiatives towards that direction, but to actually bring if you are to discuss with citizens, and that's what we learned about democratization, disruptiveness, then I don't think they are there yet, the society, the community. So once you have this, then I think we can go to the movement part, and from the many initiatives to make them into a movement. But so far, despite all the nice words in the directives about disruptiveness and energy democracy and the society as a whole, I think we are actually quite far. And I don't know whose job is to take us closer. And I'm concerned as a citizen, not as an employee of a utility company. So whose job is to do that?
Thank you. We had the question of political leadership. A quick answer from Erika here, perhaps also linked to what was just said.
Well, first of all, you need to identify the person who is willing to risk their reputation, maybe their job, maybe someone who has great passion towards it and pushes towards the end. And that's the great leader who can actually make the change inside of a municipality or inside a community, and someone who is willing to risk, for example, their jobs if they work in a municipality, so political leadership, or community leadership, someone who is willing to work and bite towards this, even the payment is not coming in the first period. Someone who is pushing this vision all the time to the whole community. The entrepreneur, yeah. And of course, maybe to encompass that there are two different perspectives you need to push simultaneously, and that is communication, so community management, and service or product. So this is something that is now connecting. It's not necessarily different business, but the same business. So I would say the energy communities is more like communication at the moment, rather than just energy.
These were closing words for this part, and so I think we have discussed several steps looking at the recipe of a successful replication here of energy communities. There are different facets, political flags to use, visions to connect to partnerships, scientific, entrepreneurial, all different options that are available to you. Another option available to you are our deciders, our coffee shop for you to engage, which are also where we have also cities like Antwerp and Prague being part of it. So also here cities to cities communication, which was highlighted here as one effective way of transferring different knowledge, then also complemented and facilitated by experts, expert organizations. But in that setting of the coffee shop, of the site, you can find more information soon to come. Sylvia, what are the next steps that we are taking here?
Well, in terms of information sharing, experience and sharing, of course, we are always open to welcome initiatives to become a decider. So be part of this group to bring this conversation forward, and also what you will learn and hear in the next hours, touching upon all aspects from community engagement to business model to legal framework. So this is happening, and everyone is welcome to join this conversation, of course. And then what was mentioned before also regarding the capacity building activities, we have 1 year to go, and we are going to make out the most of this year. So again, please, we invite everyone to be tuning because there are more webinars and workshops to come. The next one that was just discussed yesterday will be on the regulatory framework that is going to be soon approved with the vote in July of RED III. And now the Repower EU, they came into the picture, so we are going to navigate a little bit those aspects in July or so. More information, of course, on the website. So please stay tuned.
Great, and with that, I would like to invite you to give applause to the panel. They have stood all your questions, our questions in a fantastic manner. And with that, we'd like to thank you. Stay tuned. The next pillar is to come on user engagement and motivation. Thank you so much.